New tropical storm headed for the Philippines. A new storm has formed in the Philippine Sea, numbered 18W. Doesn't have an international name yet, but the local name in the Philippines, it has been named Karding. There it is right now at 18.7 north, 135.1 degrees east, and moving west-northwest at 5 kilometers per hour, that's 3 miles per hour. Currently with 50 mile per hour winds, 997 millibars, the central pressure, as of 9 p.m. Philippine time, this September 22nd. And that is 80 kilometers per hour sustained, and we expect that this storm will gradually strengthen a little bit more as it approaches the Philippines, and a typhoon landfall cannot be ruled out. Here it is displayed on the map. No watches or warnings in effect yet, and a rather small wind field as you can see there, and an odd shape actually. Usually the northern quadrants have the larger extent, but at the moment it's the southern ones. It is currently 1364 kilometers from Santa Ana, 1414 from Tuguegarao, 1557 from Baguio, 1567 from Manila, and 2211 from Hong Kong. So still got a fair amount of distance to clear yet before it reaches the islands, and that buys us some time before we can establish exactly what's going on with the storm, and of course for preparations on the ground. So a new tropical storm, along with possibly another one towards the northeast headed for Japan's 17W. We're most concerned about flash flooding for this one. Heavy rains are expected to impact the northern tip of Luzon with up to 250 millimeters possible. Rain rates are expected to be high enough to cause significant flash flooding issues in the region, with landslides in mountainous areas. It could also catch people by surprise, considering how small it is at the moment and how it might not look particularly dangerous, but it is expected to cause lots of rainfall. So here it is right now, and its current movement. Here's what we expect. There's the wind field gradually growing as the storm approaches the Philippines. There it is, landfall on Saturday or Sunday local time into the South China Sea, growing, probably becoming a typhoon there, and then possibly moving towards central Vietnam. We're not really sure yet. It might move further north towards Hainan and Hanoi by the middle of next week. JTWC's forecast takes it very close to Hainan Island, just south of it there, and they expect landfall in 3 days, and a decent spread in the observations there, but generally we're looking at around 50 miles per hour winds. ASCAT from earlier got 40 mile per hour winds, although that's slightly out of date now. JTWC at 40 miles per hour, JMA still with a depression at the moment, but we expect they'll call it a tropical storm soon, and it will get the next next international name. As you can see here, it's only just inside the Philippine area, and it's moving slowly at the minute, but it will start to speed up as it moves towards the islands. Luzon there, the PAGASA are expecting a landfall a little bit further south than what we currently expect there on the 25th. Here's what the GFS makes of it. Not much, which is interesting. I wouldn't bet on that, but it does have the storm intensifying in the South China Sea and becoming a substantial typhoon, bypassing Hainan and then moving into Vietnam. I'm not sold at all on the early stage of that model run, since it's already at 50 miles per hour, so we should see at least a bit of green there, so I would disregard that right now. But certainly with the later track, that is a lot more believable with a typhoon forecasted. Probably not as small as depicted there either. Let's check the water vapor model run, and you can see there it sort of loses its shape a little bit as it approaches Luzon, but again this is the same GFS model, and I don't think it's picked up on the initialization of the storm, so I think it will look a lot better than what's displayed there. Later on in that run you can see a few other systems try to form as well at the end there, just for your information, and for Japan just at the top there you saw 17W making landfall. But as for this one, 18W, it will then move into the South China Sea and have a significant core there of heavy rain. So let's check the rainfall expectations, and this is from the GFS once again, which I think is really underdoing it, which of course I've made quite clear now. But even so, it's forecasting substantial amounts of rainfall there, some orange areas, maybe even red areas, up to 10 inches, that's 250 millimeters. It could affect a larger area than that, I would expect, and possibly further south as well, so certainly be on your guard. But certainly later on in that run, when it reaches Vietnam, lots of moisture in that area, and there could be very high amounts of rain for Hainan, 250 millimeters, but particularly for Vietnam, which could reach almost 500 millimeters, double that, just off the coast. So something to watch very closely for all involved. Sea surface temperatures very warm. It will certainly provide a lot of energy for this storm as it tries to flourish as it nears the Philippine Islands. Temperatures around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius in the South China Sea, around 29 degrees dropping to 26, and then back up to around 28 near the Vietnamese coast. So decent temperatures all the way through, certainly enough to support a tropical cyclone. Very decent temperatures. Here's the latest satellite imagery on this new storm, and you can quite clearly see on the eastern side of it that it is being rather sheared, although I imagine it will eventually overcome that issue. As we saw in the models, big point of contention as to whether it will manage to overcome that substantially before it reaches the Philippines, or whether it will stay fairly weak. I think the consensus is still on the stronger side as opposed to what we saw in the GFS earlier. So we should still be monitoring this very closely for signs of intensification, and I believe some microwave passes earlier did show a decent structure inside the storm. On a zoomed out image you can see just how far it is from the Philippines, just on the very left hand side of the frame there, and how small this storm actually is. It is fairly small, about half the size of Luzon, but still blowing up decent amounts of convection, well into the minus 80s with those glowing tops. So signs that this storm is already on its way and intensifying to at least a small degree. Looking at the water vapor imagery, a longer loop of imagery, and you can see actually that it was smaller than this, and it's blown up quite a bit more with that convection. So that is another sign that this storm is getting up there and sort of interacting with that soup to its south there, all those thunderstorms. And let's go to another wide shot. I think it's this button, which will take us to the full view of the Geocolor Imagery, and you can see where the storm relates to the whole picture in the Western Pacific. Generally movement, we're looking westwards, so it looks as though it's going to be the northern tip of Luzon that will get the arrival of this storm in around 3 or 4 days, I think it was. And then we could, regardless of the storm's strength, I think it's going to be a heavy rainfall impact to a rather small area hopefully, but still for that area we could be looking at very high rain rates, flash flooding and landslides.